Curses. My seventh favorite thing in the Bible. You know, I've been cursed once. Fine, old, adult, female, woman, most certainly above the age of consent. I believe she was 90. Invited me over for relations, and we went all night long. I remember waking up the next morning to this, really loud crunching sounds, and it was kind of bizarre, because, it was at this moment I sensed something was up. She's old, right? What could she be crunching on? So I followed the noise till I found the source. Madam Catherine, are you most fine and eloquent over there? I called out. Madam Catherine? No! Don't tell me. There never was a Madam Catherine, only a donkey! Curses, they have an odd history. If you just think about it, it's just someone preying on the downfall of someone else. Now, to be fair, it's, usually for a decent reason. Well, I'm using the word decent loosely there. Take, for instance, the infamous Curse of the Knights Templar.
You have defied both
God and Crown, Jacques de Molay.
For your crimes by order of the king. You shall be put to death.
Bruh. My friends, welcome to the greatest time period ever to be poor, the medieval times. Old King Philip IV of France owes about $2 quadrillion to the Knights Templars, so let's play a game. How did King Philip IV decide to tackle his massive debt? Did he A. consolidate his debt, B. renegotiate his debt, C. refinance his debt, or D. Yeah, so Philip, went down the path of destruction, and oddly enough, the day he en masse arrested the Knights Templars was Friday the 13th. 5 years later after doing so, in 1312, Pope Clement V disbanded the Templars under pressure from King Philip IV. Just 2 years later, on March the 18th, 1314, Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master of the Knights Templars, was burned at the stake. He showed no fear and endured the flames until the very end, and moments before succumbing, he's reported as having proudly stated, quote, Pope Clement, Chevalier Guillaume de Nogaret, King Philip, I summon you to the tribunal of heaven before the year is out. True to the legend, the deaths followed soon after. Just over a month after de Molay's death, Pope Clement V would die on April 20th, 1314 from some fucking illness, who knows. And 7 months after this, King Philip IV passed on November 29th, 1314 from a stroke. Both died within the year de Molay had foretold, cementing the eerie myth of the Templar curse. Now, as fun as this legend is, woo, eat the rich, baby, there are some problems. Namely, no one really knows verbatim what de Molay said. Odds are he most likely invoked God, but whether he told God to handle 2 of his enemies in a year is questionable at best. Most likely what happened is that de Molay made a defiant statement from the stake, something along the lines of appealing to God for justice, but the dramatic, curse with exact timing was probably later added by fucking chroniclers eager for a good story. As for the deaths of Pope Clement V and King Philip IV later that year, I mean, folks, let's be honest. Even if de Molay did say they would both die within the year, is that really that impressive a guess? It's the 1300s, and both these niggas was about 50 when de Molay would have placed the curse. Being 50 back then, that's like being 300 today with AIDS, cancer, and Ebola. So even if he did place the curse, he had like a 95% chance of being right. So, while the curse of the Knights Templars might be more myth than reality, what about perhaps the most well-known curse of all time, a curse so dangerous that it may have claimed the most lives in human history of any curse? Folks, I'm speaking of the crime of disturbing the resting place of a god. I'm speaking of the curse of the pharaohs. Our story starts in ancient Egypt, 1353 BC. Akhenaten is the pharaoh, and upon realizing everyone loves being told who they can and cannot worship, decided to throw away ancient Egypt's polytheistic religion in favor of a, monotheistic one called Atenism, where everyone just worships a dude named Aten. He'd then erase murals and tear down monuments to the old gods. Akhenaten would then just, fucking die. Lose clues, who knows? Eventually, his son Tutankhamun would become pharaoh of Egypt at just 9 years old in 1332 BC. Regardless, he'd become the people's pharaoh when he reversed his father's decision and reinstated Egypt's polytheistic religion. He died just 9 years later at 18 due to the classic, 1-2 wombo combo of a broken leg plus malaria. King Tut would be buried at the Valley of Kings, but then his tomb itself would be buried by construction on another set of tombs 150 years later. Tut's tomb would be forgotten about and undisturbed for over 3,000 years. Until in 1922, a lovely feller named Howard Carter, financially backed by someone named, George Edward Stanhope Molyneux Herbert, 5th Earl of Carnarvon, came along. Fucking nerd name, by the way. Just name your name Paul, bro. These two had been looking for Tut's tomb for about 5 years at this point, and Lord Carnarvon had started to grow tired of funding what seemed like a hopeless project, and stated this year would be his last doing so. I mean, he wasn't wrong. On November the 4th, 1922, Howard Carter and his team would locate King Tut's tomb, and for those wondering, part of what makes Tut's tomb so remarkable is it's the most complete tomb ever discovered. I mean, due to the fact that no one knew where the fuck it was for 3,000 years. Anyway, the very next day, the Lord arrived in Egypt to check out the tomb, and became one of the first people in modern history to enter the tomb. Nearly a week later, the tomb was officially opened, and it was soon after strange things began to happen. About a month after finding the tomb, Howard Carter would send a messenger to his house, and when the messenger arrived, he found a cobra, a symbol of the Egyptian monarchy, in Carter's birdcage in the middle of eating Carter's canary. Local whisperings of a curse placed on those who visited the young pharaoh's tomb began to take off, as the warning found on the outside of Tut's tomb began to circulate, which stated, quote, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." The locals' worst fears would be confirmed when just 3 months later, on the 5th of April 1923, Lord Carnarvon would die from an infected mosquito bite, but that's not all. The mosquito bit the Lord on his left cheek. In the same exact spot, a lesion was found on King Tut's left cheek. Following the Lord's death, the whisperings of the curse of the pharaohs were now shoutings so loud they prompted the CEO of Italian Trains Incorporated, Benito Mussolini, to return a mummy he once received as a gift, fearing retribution himself. Just 1 month after the Lord's death, on May 16th, 1923, another visitor of the tomb, George J. Gould, would die from pneumonia. 8 months after him, another visitor, Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, a radiologist who actually x-rayed King Tut's body, would die from cancer. 4 years later, in 1928, A.C. Mace, a member of Carter's team, would die from pneumonia. That same year, Lord Carnarvon's brother would too die from pneumonia. And finally, perhaps most horrifyingly, a year later, Captain Richard Bethels, the secretary for Howard Carter, his body would be found. He'd been smothered to death, and to this day, no one knows who did it. This brings us to 6 dead people in 6 years, 7 if you count the bird. Now, you already might have, seen some problems. Bro, let's just be honest, half these niggas died from pneumonia. I mean, bro, penicillin ain't even dropped to the 1940s. I mean, the other nigga died from cancer, but, he was a radiologist in the early 20th century. At that point, you just asking for it, right? The Lord died from an infected mosquito bite in Africa. That's like, bro, that's gotta be like 1,000% fatality rates. And I mean, what about the main dude who spearheaded this entire operation, Howard Carter? He died 16 years later of cancer. And he called the curse hogwash. Although I must say, this thing was looking around, all these bodies dropping around him. He's tempting the gods, boy. I don't know. I feel like the curse of the pharaohs, really falls apart when you realize there never was a curse of the pharaohs. And that while, yes, there were, real ancient Egyptian curses to defend from grave robbing, like the warning outside the tomb of Ankh-Amor, which states, quote, As for anything which you will do against this tomb of mine of the necropolis, the like will be done against your possessions. Nothing was ever written on the outside of old Tutty Putty's tomb. You know, that saying I stated earlier, death shall come on swift wings to him who deserves the peace of the king. You know, this is, I'm sorry to be the one to break this to you guys, this might have been the first time in the history of the world the media and tabloids made something up. Shocking, I know. Throw in some embellished facts, like, you know, the Lord being bit on his left cheek, and leave out other facts, like Carter dying 16 years after the fact, and, you know, you've got a pretty good sounding curse here. The only real tragedy here is, you know, the one dude, Richard Bethel, who got smothered to death, and no one cared to find out why, bro. But I seen him die, and I just blame the gods. I didn't even try looking for that, for the dude who might have killed him, you know. So with that said, you know, do I believe in curses? Absolutely! I'm a big believer over here. Hey, King Tut killed them niggas, bro. Just like Dame Olay killed them other niggas. You know, don't cross a witch, fellas. That's all I'm trying to say.